Welcome to a brand new episode of the Bold Take Podcast. That's Awesome Waiter. That's Awesome Waiter. And I'm Austin Hill. I mixed it all up today. I did this last time too, I
I know, I was
believe.
about to
I
say, I think you
did.
did do it last
Uh,
time.
I'm making a habit of saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. But we're back talking college football action. Obviously, we had the release yesterday at the time of recording this of the college football playoff, and the landscape is set as well as all of our bowl games. We won't get into our full bowl game bonanza as well as picking the college football playoff just yet, but we will talk about a couple of those bowl games coming up this weekend. Um, but first off, let's just start in conference championship uh week, and let's start where it all began on Friday night. We had some pretty big games being played on Friday night. Kennesaw State and Jacksonville State for the Conference USA title, where Kennesaw State gets a 19-15 victory. And what a great effort by the Owls. Second year in FBS
Yep, second year.
to go out and win Conference USA. Um, After, a pretty big improvement after the season they had last year. So kind of fast tracking them on a path to success, maybe in the Conference USA and maybe on the national landscape as well. Thoughts on the Conference USA championship?
Well, this was just a weird game. It was on pace to be the quickest game in the history of college football, maybe, because this was 12-0 Kennesaw with like 10 minutes left in the game. Nothing had basically happened besides one touchdown, a safety, this and that. And then all of a sudden, in the span of 6 minutes, Jacksonville State scores two touchdowns. All of a sudden, with 3 minutes left, they're up 15-12. You're like, what the heck just happened here? Where did this come from? But then Kennesaw State goes on this game-winning drive, in which they faced a 3rd and 26, picked up 25, then converted a 4th and 1, and then faced a 4th and 14 in which their starting quarterback Amari Odom scrambles for 15 yards to pick up the first down on the 4th and 14. Love to see it. And then he threw a game-winning touchdown with 50 seconds left. Just a phenomenal turnaround for Kennesaw. Love it for Jerry Mack. I still remember last year whenever Kennesaw fired their coach, who had been with the program since it started. And you, as well as me, were both like, that doesn't really seem fair to him, given what it was. But they better nail this next hire. And they hire Jerry Mack, and in year one, they go 10-3 and they win this conference USA. Do want to give another shout out to Amari Odom. As we talk, I'll talk more about him later. But fun fact, Austin, you know me. I'm a Twitter guy. I love posting, cheering whenever I'm running for it. And I remember I posted like Amari Odom's a legend. That scramble for that 4th and 14 was legendary. Who's a fan of my tweet? Amari Odom, the quarterback. Let me know you liked the tweet. So shout out Amari Odom. Your greatness was not distracted by anything else, at least to me. Enjoyed the greatness in that game on Friday night, but awesome turnaround for the Kennesaw State Owls.
Yeah, and then the other conference championship game that didn't have huge bearings on our college football playoff picture, that was the Mountain West Championship. And we had talked about this game last week and what we thought, this was the game everybody kind of had circled. We thought it was going to be UNLV Boise State last at the beginning of the season. And we thought that this would be teams playing for that right to get the group of five conference champion spot. And even with two spots being opened, and then, of course, we'll talk about later being given to group of five teams, it was neither of these teams winning this game. But still a great game and a great performance. Boise State gets the 38-21 victory. And look, they won this game, like you said, just a few weeks ago when these two teams played. Uh, Boise State was able to win this game. But we both kind of thought, at least I thought, that UNLV would get back in the saddle here. But again, a huge victory for Boise State. And these are the kind of performances that they've been hoping to see from Maddox Madsen, 289 yards, three touchdowns. I think it could be a really big turning point for this program as they head into the Pac-12 next year. If
Right.
they can really get Maddox Madsen comfortable in running the offense as a true quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I think we both picked UNLV mainly because we thought maybe they could perform better, but also mainly because we both picked them to win the preseason. I mean, let's say it like it is here. I mean, we can't lie. But the matchup in the regular season, I mean, shoot, Boise State beat them by 25. So it was going to be hard for UNLV to come in there and win. And sure enough, Boise State gets up 21 nothing in the blink of an eye. And we're like, well, here we go again. But to UNLV's credit, they made it a 28-21 game entering the fourth quarter. They made it close. But then Boise State's able to pull away late in the fourth quarter. And like I said, surprising that Boise State win this conference doesn't mean they're going to the college football playoff. But who would have thought in a down year for Boise State where they went 8-4, they still win the Mountain West Conference Championship, Austin? I mean, they continue to be one of the biggest juggernauts in this group of five.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're going to be something to look out for as, like we talked about before, the Pac-12 looks to turn itself around and get back to that more competitive status as a conference. We'll see if Boise State is maybe at the forefront of leading that conference back into the light. Um, but then let's turn it and look at the Sun Belt Conference Championship here. James Madison Dukes enter the college football top 25 for the first time leading up to this game, facing off against a Troy Trojans team that has been kind of the guys running the show in this conference over the last few years. Um, Squaring up here, James Madison knew they might have an opportunity to make the college football playoff. And my goodness, we talk about chaos scenarios. Had Duke won the AC, with Duke winning the ACC, but what would have happened? A hypothetical we can kind of look back on and just have fun with now. What would have happened if James Madison lost this game? Because who knows? Where do you go from there as far as putting a team into the college football playoff? In that fifth conference champion spot. But obviously, it didn't end up mattering. James Madison, a 31-14 victory over the Troy Trojans. And this was just a dominant ground game from the Dukes. Really controlled this game. Wayne Knight had an awesome performance in this game. And they just never showed any signs of letting up and letting Troy back into this game. And you could see the celebration on the field. James Madison knew how close they were to a college football berth after winning this game.
Yeah, and you think about that hypothetical scenario where, we wonder, well, what happened with James Madison? Well, this was a 3-point lead for James Madison with 6 minutes left. So we were very much cutting it kind of close on that realistic, being that scenario, being very real for anyone to have a chance there. But James Madison goes on this big drive. Like I said, they do that ground game. Alonzo Barnett with some big plays as well. And then Wayne Knight, they get the touchdown. Then they get the strip sack return for a touchdown in the blink of an eye, 31-14. So this game was a lot closer than what this final score tells. This was a 17-14 James Madison lead with 6 minutes left in the game. But the Dukes got it together. They got the win. And as we're going to dive into a little bit later, they get to keep on playing, Austin. They get to keep on playing for a chance maybe at doing something special.
Yeah, absolutely. And this feels kind of right for James Madison. Kind of talked about 2 years ago, uh,
Right.
giving this team their rights and their dues. And because they were so fresh into the college football playoff scene and the FBS scene, they were never going to have the chance to be a team that could compete for the national championship. So kind of feels like they get that one back now that they'll be playing in the college football playoff, like you said. But then our biggest square off in the American, we knew the winner of this game was going to go to the college football playoff. They would have a spot written down. Tulane versus North Texas. I was leaning North Texas in this game. I thought they were the better team. But Tulane came out and they controlled the game. They made Drew Mestemaker make a lot of mistakes in this game. North Texas in general made a lot of uncharacteristic mistakes in this game. But the big thing to me, no Caleb Hawkins after he got banged up
Mm.
early in this game. And so they had to play without him. So we didn't see North Texas quite at full strength. And Tulane definitely capitalized on that. Obviously, later in this game, North Texas started to make it a little bit closer. But Tulane rolled in this game and showed why they were favored to win the American and kind of got the job done. We talk about the last couple of years of being right on the cusp of winning this American and not quite getting the job done.
Yeah, it's a great story for them. And you think about it for North Texas, the thing that hurt them in this game is the same thing that hurt them in the South Florida game, which was their only other loss on the year. was turnovers. The turnovers cost them in that South Florida game, and the turnovers ultimately cost them in this game. Besides that, I mean, you look at it, the two teams were even as you look at those turnovers being the ultimate difference really in the game. And that led to Tulane getting up early on them and having full control. And then North Texas offense able to come back and make the plays. But the defense not nearly a strength for this team. Needed to get some stops late, and they really couldn't. They made it 31-21, and then James Madison or then Tulane goes on a 13 play, 66-yard drive that kills 7 minutes off the clock, and they get a field goal. So that really was the seal of the deal there on that drive. But happy for Tulane. Like I said, so many years of getting so close to winning this conference. They, of course, did win it the one year whenever they beat USC in the Cotton Bowl, obviously. But you think of the SMU year where their backup quarterback's playing. You think they got that one. Army last year, they got that one maybe. Not necessarily. So for them to finally win it, especially what was at stake here, it was special for them and special for John Summerall, who's going to get to continue his time here before he goes to Florida. Big win for the Green Wave of Tulane.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about our last game with no playoff implications whatsoever. Western Michigan and Miami of Ohio squared off in the MAC championship, and Western Michigan gets the job done 23-13. A close game, but a victory for the now 9-4 Broncos. This is a big win for Western Michigan, who feels like kind of faded out of relevance the
Mm.
last couple of years in this conference. The last time I can really think of them was like the first or second or third year of the four-team college football playoff, that undefeated season they had where they were trying to make their campaign to go to the college football playoff. I think ultimately they got flattened in a pretty big New Year's
I think
Six
they
bowl
played
game.
Wisconsin in the Cotton Bowl, I think is who they
Yeah,
played. Something
I
like
think
that.
I think it was something like that, and ultimately they were, like we say, kind of flattened in that game. But haven't really heard much of the Broncos since then. But facing off against a team like Miami of Ohio, who is usually one of the two teams hanging around this conference championship, feels like a big win to kind of put yourself up there in the hierarchy of the MAC coming into next year.
Yeah, and the thing that hurt Miami High in this game, ultimately, honestly, the whole Daquan Finn situation where he leaves the team like with 2 or 3 games left in the season to go get ready for the NFL draft, which I have mixed feelings about. I'm not. I'm just gonna leave it at that. But shout out Western Michigan's ground game. Jalen Buckley, nearly 200 yards rushing. They were able to control this game throughout most of it. And when Miami Ohio's backup quarterbacks coming in, when they're having trouble throwing the ball and you can't really run the football that well, it's going to equal your offense not being able to have as much success. And when Western Michigan controlling the ground game, controlling the clock, it was a very comfortable win for the Broncos. And I always love rooting for the MAC champion. And you love seeing it for the Broncos here. Again, the team that I didn't really think had much of a chance entering the preseason. I know I don't believe you did either. So fun
No.
little story here in the MAC. Congrats to the Western Michigan Broncos.
Yeah, absolutely. Hats off to them. But let's take a look at our first big conference championship game on Saturday. That was BYU versus Texas Tech for the Big 12 championship. And look, the Cougars knew coming into this game they needed a win to get into the college football playoff. Um, Texas Tech was pretty much set in, but a win here would get you that bye and would show exactly how dominant you are. Um, and after one quarter, look, I'll be honest, 7-0 BYU lead, I thought BYU is going to give these Red Raiders a fight down to the last minute. And that had kind of matched up with the football we'd seen the Cougars play since they got blown out in Lubbock uh, a few weeks ago. We had seen a much more dominant, much more efficient BYU team. And so I thought maybe we were in on the way to an upset in this game. But instead, Texas Tech comes out and just dominates the final 3 quarters of this game. 13 points in the second quarter, 8 in the third, 13 in the fourth. The defense was phenomenal. It was the pressure that they were really able to put on Bear Bachmeier, I think, made all the difference in the world. And you talk about it, Roberts was able to make 2 phenomenal interceptions in this game.
Mm-hmm.
BYU looked really good, and honestly, they could have won this game by more had they made a couple easier of those easy field goals. after getting turnovers. So this was a pretty dominant Texas Tech win that I think kind of, obviously punched their ticket as one of those top four teams that deserve to bye in the first round of this college football playoff.
It really was carbon copy of that exact first matchup. I mean, it really was. The way the game started and BYU scored that opening touchdown, it played out exactly like I said on here, where I was like, BYU fired up. Maybe they come out and punch them in the mouth early, go up, strike them early. But besides that, the game was the exact same. Texas Tech was able to get it clicking on the ground, especially getting multiple guys involved. Morton made some big throws down the field, but the big thing, the defense went to work, got interceptions. This BYU rushing attack has to be great, and they got held to 63 yards rushing in the game. I mean, and like we said, whenever we're doing the live stream yesterday, I want to talk about, can't believe they're paid for this defense, the best team money can buy. Yeah, welcome to today's college football. I would gladly buy that defense that they've got there. I would gladly buy that defense. And you know what buying that defense got them? It got them a dominant performance, a top four seed in the college football playoff, and a Big 12 championship. So yeah, I think the best team money could buy. I think it was definitely worth the price, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is the future of college football. It's time to get on board and stop complaining. Certainly, they wear it like a badge of honor. They don't take it as an insult of all,
Yeah.
and rightfully so. Then we have the SEC championship, the only game in the afternoon on Saturday, and it was a Georgia rout, 28-7 over the Crimson Tide. And look, kind of like I talked about on the live stream yesterday, this was really kind of the way we've seen Alabama get beat this season. The pressure on Ty Simpson doesn't allow him to be nearly as good and consistent as possible. They shut down the run game in this game. I think rushed for -3 yards in this game.
Mhm.
Obviously, that factors in the sack yardage. Um, but this was just a dominant performance by Georgia's defense. Really, the offense looked good, and no disrespect to Georgia's offense because it did not have to do a lot
Mhm.
to win this game. But the defense really showed out and made a Heisman candidate like Ty Simpson show a lot of his flaws, a lot of the same flaws I think we saw in the Oklahoma game just a few weeks ago. And this is kind of right now that I think the game plan to beat the Crimson Tide. Obviously, if you're Oklahoma, you go back to what did we do a few weeks ago, and then you look at what Georgia did in this game, and that's a pretty good game plan of how to shut down the Heisman hopeful in Ty Simpson.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say his Heisman hopes are about as good of a chance as some of these other teams had of making the playoff after Saturday. I'm not going to lie. I mean, it was done. Here's the difference in the matchup from the first time these two played. When Bama went to Georgia, Bama was 13 of 19 on third downs. They were so good on third down. They made some clutch throws down the field, converted a lot. 3 for 14 on third down in this game. Also, you talked about the ground game. And look, Kirby said it best. Is his team banged up? Absolutely. Is Bama's team banged up? Absolutely. But you want to know the different thing is, and it's a thing that I always love about Kirby. Doesn't matter what the team's at right now. It doesn't matter how strong the team is. They've always got just a little bit of an edge to them, no matter what. And that's ultimately what this game was. Was it perfect for this offense? No, it didn't need to be. And talk about the difference in Georgia. I talked about at the beginning of the year, defensive line would not get any pressure on the quarterback at all. They were struggling there. And as the season's progressed and as the season's gone along, they've been getting more and more pressure. And they got after Ty Simpson's butt on Saturday. And it led to domination for Georgia in this game. And I will go ahead and say it now. Obviously, we're going to make our predictions, later on whenever the games are getting closer. If I'm any team in the playoff, I don't want to face the Georgia Bulldogs right now. Do not want to face the Georgia Bulldogs. They are may not be the healthiest, but this defense is getting better. Gunnar Stockton's being efficient, and the run game is tough to beat. That's a team that equals going to cause some issues for other teams in this playoff.
For sure. Then let's take a look at the Big Ten championship here. This was a clash between number one and number two for who is going to get the number one seed in this college football playoff. Um, and for Indiana and Ohio State, they clashed and they played a great ball game, 13-10 final. And you think about it, after Indiana scored in the third quarter, nobody scored for the rest of this game. We saw two really great defenses. I think when we look at these two teams, especially when I think about Indiana this season, it's not that their defense has been bad, but I think of Mendoza and Elijah Surratt and a lot of these guys on this offense that make things happen. And you can look at the same thing for Ohio State with Julian Sayin, Jeremiah Smith, Cardell Tate. You look at these two offenses and you think, we're in for a big time offensive showcase between some Heisman hopefuls, between just some of the best offensive players we've got in college football. And instead, we see why these two teams are regarded as having two of the best defenses in college football. And you talk about it. Look, you talked about if Ohio State can keep Indiana inside of 17 points, they had a chance in this game. Still haven't given up more than 17 points in a game. And even though they held into 13, they still fall to the Hoosiers in this game. And my goodness, when I realized when this game went final and I had realized Indiana was going to be the number one team in the country going into the college football playoff, I was trying to just think, what time do we live in? What timeline are we on right now? It's not college basketball time. Indiana being the number one football team in the nation is just hard to fathom. But I mean, they've got the resume, they've got the wins, they've got the games. It's not that they don't deserve it. It's just such a shock. And what Kurt Cignetti's done with this team in just 2 years' time, two college football playoff berths, and now the number one overall seed in the college football playoff with a Big Ten championship to go beside it, I'd say that's winning. If his Google is any indicator.
Yeah, it truly is there. Here's the thing that cost Ohio State in this game. Second half in this game. I'll talk about right here. Minute 44 to go in the third. They faced a 3rd and 1 on their own 6. They didn't get any points out of that possession at all. 3rd down and 1 at the 9 yard at the Indiana 9 with 2:59 left in the game. Didn't convert on 3rd and 1 and then decided, okay, fine, we'll just take the short little field goal to tie it up. No big deal. Whoop! There goes the kick to the side. Didn't even get any close at all. And I'll be honest with you, that's kind of karma for, I think, being a wuss there. If I'm playing for the number one seed and I know I'm in the playoff no matter what, and it's a 4th and 1 inside the 10, and I can score a touchdown, take the lead, I'm going for it there. That's just my opinion. If I'm the coach, I'm going for it there. And again, it doesn't matter what play it was. But whenever that happened, it was like I said, it was just like a realization, like, wow. I mean, Indiana really did. And all I could do whenever it happened, Austin, I just sat there sitting down, just like, well, like I can't believe we're sitting here and doing it. And like I said, like a few weeks on here, Kurt Cignetti has new coaching hires, just those guys sweating in their boots night in and night out. Because whenever they're asking, give us time, give us patience to build this program and build it up. Kurt Cignetti didn't need time. The man's 24-2 at Indiana, a school that when he got there had the most losses of any team in the history of FBS schools. A team like that, and he's come in and gone 24-2 in 2 years with a team that last year, let's say it like it is, overachieved a lot. Made 11-1, made the college football playoff, and then he's come out in year 2 is like, you know what? We can do even better. And we've seen that this year. And it's not like he's doing it with the big recruiting classes. Indiana finished in like the 50th ranking for recruiting. It's not like he's getting the big recruits in high school. He's getting the right guys for their system, and it's leading to great success for this program under him. I mean, it's incredible for him. Now, obviously, whenever we dive into the playoff, the big thing, no team last year that had a bye won a game. So they're going to be number one seed. They'll get the easiest matchup, it seems, of all the teams that got a bye. But they got to come ready to play and try to win national championship. And this isn't going to be no fairy tale story. They are a legit program, ladies and gentlemen. You better get used to it.
Yeah, and one thing to talk about with getting the right guys is Indiana has made a commitment, not the same kind of commitment that Texas Tech's made to their NIL collective, but they have made a big commitment to their NIL and what they're going to do for Kurt Cignetti and what he can do in the transfer portal and how he's going to be able to bring guys in with NIL. And again, that's just the future of college football. It's NIL. It's having the money to pay players. And look, you don't need the Texas Tech's, multi multi-million-dollar fund where, they've got millions and millions and millions of dollars flowing into this NIL collective, but just enough money to be able to get the guys you need to get and to have that support from the university, I think is so important. And that's why we're seeing Texas Tech, Indiana sitting up here in the top four seeds in the college football playoff. It's because of that commitment to this team. And you talk about those two losses for Kurt Signetti. Look, they both came last year, and they both came to the two teams that played in the national championship last year.
Mhm.
And this year, he hasn't lost to anybody. So I'd say right now, he's got a pretty good track record. Of the losses that he does have, they're some of the better losses that you can have. Uh, but let's take a look at the final conference championship game, where everybody's eyes, I think, were glued on Saturday night. ACC championship, Virginia versus Duke. And look, this was back and forth, close game. And coming into the end of this game, I'm thinking what? I think it was a 13 or a 10-point lead. I can't exactly remember. Inside of 10 minutes in the fourth quarter. And Duke gets the ball back. And I'm thinking, wow, Duke is actually going to win this game. And then a couple stall out drives. Virginia scores. They get a great finish to the end of the half. The exciting touchdown to go and force overtime, and then these two teams clash in overtime, where Duke has an awesome score, and on one play, Duke takes advantage of a Chandler Morris mistake and wins the ACC championship as 8-5. Worst case scenario for the ACC, but a huge win for the first ACC championship in football in Duke program history. This was an awesome game to watch, and it ended in a phenomenal way. It just felt like almost like football itself was trying to stop Duke from winning this game with the way the fourth quarter ended, and yet they found a way to steal it in overtime. This was honestly such an impressive performance for a Duke team that's been kind of defying the odds all season.
It truly was, and the difference in the game, I'll go ahead and say it to you, was Duke played like a team that had nothing to lose. They were a 7-5 team in their conference championship. They had absolutely nothing to lose going into this game. Virginia had arguably one of the best seasons, if not the best season in school history, and they needed to win, and they were in. So I mean, it was the exact opposite. Duke, nothing to lose. Virginia, everything to lose coming into this game. And both teams kind of played like it. Duke's out here running fake field goals, fake punts in this game early to gain momentum. Virginia's playing it safe with some punts. They're missing field goals. They're taking field goals instead of going for it. That's how it felt. Like I said, Duke kicked that field goal. 5 minutes left in the game. They're up 20-10. I was like, wow, awesome. We're getting this chaos scenario. This is great. And then Virginia gets a quick field goal. Duke makes some very questionable offensive play calls on their next drive. And then Virginia gets that touchdown, make it 20-20. And I was like, wow, that's it. Virginia's going to win this thing in overtime. Ends the doomsday scenario for the ACC. We had a good run thinking it could happen. And then Duke had it 4th and goal, got the ball first in overtime. Maybe a team with something to lose just kicks the field goal. 4th and goal, we got nothing to lose. Hell yeah, we're going for it. And they get it. And the thing that I think people are forgetting here, on the touchdown, there was a roughing the passer on Virginia that Duke put onto Virginia's possession. So instead of starting at the 25, where the play calling can be different, Virginia started at its own 40-yard line. Had to go 40 yards to get a touchdown instead of 25 yards. So they think, all right, we got to get creative here. Got to get creative. And it ultimately ended in the double pass they tried, thrown into double coverage. And again, it just ended in a heartbreak for Virginia. And this is Duke's first outright ACC championship since 1962. They had won shares of the conference, but their first outright since 1962. I feel bad for Virginia because they've been such a fun story and they've been a historic season for them to come up short. But Duke played like a team that had nothing to lose, and that ultimately led to them getting their best victory of the season in the ACC championship.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was such a tough finish there for Duke or for Virginia and an exciting season. But like you said, it was the decision making there at the end was what was, I think, really the big takeaway. for a lot of people um, in this one. But now let's take a look at our team and player of the week. So team and player of the week will be a little bit different for the episode. The polls are up now on social media, Twitter, Instagram. So go and vote. We won't have winners and losers in this episode, but we will go ahead and take down our teams and players of the week here. So top five teams of the week from conference championship week.
Yeah, so my top five teams had number five. I went with Georgia. Reason I put them there is again, I wanted to get some other teams some recognition, and I thought they played great. They handled business. They really dominated the game without really trying on the offensive end. Speaking of something else I didn't mention, shout out their special teams for a blocked punt early in the game that also gave them a momentum. Number four, Kennesaw State. Again, I watched this whole ending for Kennesaw to go down the field and win it, and they've been such a phenomenal story this year. The turnaround, one to show them some love and get them in. Number four. Number three is Tulane. Just fine. Getting over that hump after a couple of years of struggles in recent years. Getting over the hump and win that American. They earned it. Number two, Indiana. Look, again, got the win. They're going to be number one seed in the college football playoff. You love to see it for the Hoosiers. But number one, the one that wouldn't make this scenario that people are currently debating about, and we're going to debate about in a minute, it wouldn't be possible without them. And that's the Duke Blue Devils winning the ACC over the Virginia Cavaliers.
Yeah. And funny enough, I've got the same five teams, just in a different order. At number five, I've got Kennesaw State. Was an awesome performance, way to turn the program around. Just an exciting game for them. At number four, I went with Tulane. This was a big win to kind of show where you stand in the American Conference, and like we talked about, to finally get that American trophy in the trophy case was a nice touch for this team and for John Summerall. Uh, and number three, I put Georgia. Look, talk about righting the only wrong you've had this season in a pretty big way, in a pretty dominant way. Hats off to the Bulldogs there. At number two, Indiana, number one overall seed, best team in college football, the only undefeated team left in the FBS. Incredible performance for the Hoosiers. And then number one, I went with the Duke Blue Devils. Like you said, caused chaos, caused pandemonium, had nothing to lose, and they went out and they took advantage of every opportunity. Sure, maybe shouldn't they not have been there? Is the tiebreaker stupid? Sure, but we're here. We're going to make the most of it. We're going to go out and win this game. And what I love about them going out and winning this game, even more importantly, the ACC had a lot to lose with Duke winning this game. They did. Uh, and they didn't care about that. Manny Diaz and Duke didn't let the conference pressure get to them. Oh, we'll be good sports for the conference to make sure we get somebody in. No, we're going to go out and we're going to win this game and we're going to win the ACC title, and nobody's going to tell us any differently. That's what I really loved about Duke is they didn't care about conference affiliation. They were worried about doing what was best for their program. But let's take a look at our players of the week now. Your top five players. Ready to hear this.
Right. So at number five, I got Jalen Buckley, the running back, Western Michigan, nearly 200 yards rushing, had a big 67-yard touchdown in the game, two rushing touchdowns on the day. Really was the catalyst for the Broncos in that MAC championship one. Show them some love. Number four, I got Fernando Mendoza. Man, I tell you what, I still think first play of the game against Ohio State, he throws a pass, and Ohio State defenders hits him right under the chin. I mean, hit a person where good enough where it'd be like, if he got knocked out of the game, then that's completely understandable. Fernando misses one play, gets his butt back in there, and then he makes some big time throws when this team needed them to get the win, and ultimately puts it in now a pretty much a two-person race for the Heisman Trophy between him and Diego Pavia, which that's just a totally different thing. That's just awesome about this year that either a Vandy quarterback or Indiana quarterback are the two favorites for the Heisman Trophy. Just awesome. Number three, like you mentioned for Texas Tech, Ben Roberts, two picks in the game. We've spent all this year talking about Jacob Rodriguez, how great of a linebacker he's been for the Red Raiders. I think all of them were too busy focusing on him, forgot about Ben Roberts. Made some big plays in this game, two interceptions, really led the ultimate difference in them getting this lead out to where they did and win this Big 12 title. Number two, Wayne Knight, running back, James Madison, like I said, over 200 yards rushing, really controlled the game on the ground. Made some big runs, really was a difference in getting that win over Troy, even though that final score makes it look like it was a blowout more than it was. But number one, Hey, listen, if you like my tweets that I'm talking about you, I think it's fair that you've earned a right to get an opportunity at number one. And that is the legend himself from Kennesaw, Mari Odom, made some huge plays down the stretch for Kennesaw State on the road in the Conference USA Championship. And hey, you got a new follower in me, Amari. I already followed you on Twitter. We're set. Hey, if you want to come on the Bold Take podcast, we'd be more than happy to have you. So, had to show him some love. Got him as my number one player of the week.
Fun list, fun list. And number five on my list, I went with Gunnar Stockton at Georgia. And look, the passing yardage, it's not a wowing number. I think 156 yards, but three passing touchdowns. He did what he needed to do for his team. He didn't have a whole lot of opportunity to pass for a whole lot of yards.
Right.
Um, just kind of took advantage of the situation and helped kind of maintain the flow for this offense. At number four, I went with Luke Murgott, linebacker from Duke. A deep bench linebacker thrust into action in this game for Duke, and on a trick play where you'd have every reason and every excuse to say, I got duped. I was out of position. He just runs out, finds a guy, and makes the play of the game to win the ACC championship, not to seal it, to win it. I thought that was phenomenal. And in his interview after the game, they're asking, what did you see out there? My personal, he couldn't even answer the question because what do you, it's a trick play. Like he didn't know that was going to happen. He thought the running back was going to take it, and then they flip it to the quarterback, and he's like, I've just got to find somebody. I mean, that's got to be the mindset, right? I just got to go find somebody. And he just happened to go find the right guy. I thought it was a kind of a crazy question because it's not like they knew that was going to happen. It was really just kind of find a
See,
guy.
my response would have been see ball, get ball. That would have been my
Yeah.
response. I saw the ball was coming towards me and I said, I'm gonna go get that. I mean, that's truly what it was.
Yeah, but just an awesome play. Then at number three, I went with Ben Roberts from Texas Tech. Like you said, the two interceptions. He was a force in this game where we typically think of Jacob Rodriguez. Ben Roberts kind of shined, kind of got overlooked this season and made BYU pay for it. At number two, I went with Maddox Madsen. Like I said, the 282 yards, the three passing touchdowns. Maddox Madsen had a huge game and a huge spotlight for Boise State and kind of puts them on the right path as they head to the Pac-12. And then at number one, I went with Wayne Knight out of James Madison, the 212 yards on the ground, the one touchdown. Definitely carried the load for this James Madison team.
You know what?
But
You know
now
what's funny? You know what's funny to me though is like whenever I hear that, you know the actor Wayne Knight, right? You know
the name sounds familiar. I can't
he's
place a face right now.
you know the big guy in Space Jam that like goes down the hole with
Yes.
Michael Jordan? That's him. That's the actor Wayne Knight. So whenever I
Wow.
just hear the name Wayne Knight, I just think of Space Jam. Every single time I hear it. That's the one thing I'm just like, the heck is Wayne Knight doing on the football field? He can't be stopped out here. What are we doing?
No, he's unstoppable. So let's take a look at the final college football playoff rankings, and we'll both kind of give our thoughts on the top teams here. At the one seed, Indiana moves up one spot. At the two seed, Ohio State moves down a spot. Three is Georgia. Four is Texas Tech. Five is Oregon. Six, Ole Miss. Seven, Texas A&M. Eight, Oklahoma. Nine, Alabama. 10, Miami moves up two spots to make the college football playoff. And then rounding out the playoff seedings, coming in at 20, but will be the 11 seed, is Tulane. And coming in at 24, but will be the 12 seed, is James Madison. Notre Dame and BYU, the first two teams left out of this college football playoff. And first, I just kind of want to give my final thoughts on the Notre Dame Miami debate. I think after watching the interview with Hunter Yurchek at the end of the show after the rankings had come out, and was that Reese Davis or Chris Fowler doing the interview? Because I always get them mixed up.
It was Reese. It was Reese Davis asking him. It
Reese
was Reese
Davis.
Davis asking him.
So I thought Reese Davis asked some awesome questions, some really completely unbiased and fair questions. And by the way, Hunter Yurchek just couldn't answer them. I realized the College Football Playoff Committee had exactly no criteria for what it takes to be a top 25 team. And I like the way that Reese Davis worded it because I think at this point I've come to terms with the fact that the head-to-head is fine. Like, I'm fine with that. but the way we got here,
Mm.
how did we get here? And that's what Reese Davis asked. He said, I'm not arguing with the outcome or that Miami shouldn't be in the college football playoff, but how after 5 weeks of basically telling us that this head to head between Notre Dame and Miami doesn't matter and just kind of ignoring it for 5 weeks, how all of the sudden is that factored into the criteria, and why was Miami not ranked ahead of Notre Dame sooner? Uh, and Hunter Yurchek kept going on about how he thought BYU was the better team. And my thing is, here's my thought process. If you think Miami needs to be below BYU because BYU is better than Miami, but Notre Dame is ahead of BYU because you think Notre Dame's better than BYU, then how? I'm sorry, maybe my mental math is wrong, but does that not mean that you think Notre Dame is better than Miami? If you think BYU, again, if you, this is his words, they thought BYU was better than Miami, so they ranked them ahead of Miami, and they thought Notre Dame was better than BYU, so they ranked Notre Dame ahead of BYU. Well, in my opinion, when I think of a team being better than a team that I think is better than another team, does that not make Notre Dame better than Miami in their minds? And again, BYU moves down. So BYU was punished for their abysmal Big 12 championship performance, and they moved down a spot. And this creates this head-to-head between Notre Dame. I'm not as mad about the head-to-head. That's criteria that's in the college football playoff rules. That's it, part of their criteria. Whatever. Why did we not move ahead of Alabama? Alabama played, I would argue, poorer than BYU. They didn't lose by as much, but at least BYU got the first score of the game. At least BYU looked like they were going to do something in this game for a little bit. Alabama pretty much from the get-go was out of this game. Didn't score their only touchdown of the game until the fourth quarter when this game was already settled. I just don't. I'm less mad that Miami's in and Notre Dame's out than I am that Alabama. I mean, you got to think about it. If you're BYU, you were punished for your performance in a conference championship, and Alabama wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's a lot of logic there. But look, I'm not going to say they got the wrong teams in. I think we all wish that the college football playoff was more transparent with their reasonings and their logic. And I wish there was just a better explanation about why Notre Dame is ranked higher than Miami for every college football playoff poll until the one that matters. Just a little bit perplexing. But your overall thoughts after kind of coming out of all of this, like I said, I think I'm okay with the teams that are in. I wish the process is a little bit more transparent and a little bit more clear for fans, coaches, and players to understand. Because if truly Notre Dame never had a chance, why were they ranked higher than Miami all year? But your thoughts on this after all the dust is settled?
Well, you talk about transparency. I'll just be blatantly honest. I think this whole playoff system with the committee and everything is a flat out joke. I just in quite honesty, talking about the actual ranks here, then I'll go to my big wide picture about what the playoffs should be. Here's the thing that bothered me. What Hunter said was once BYU lost and it became Miami and Notre Dame were head to head, then he's like, I made everyone go back and watch the Miami Notre Dame game from week one. I'm like, did we not watch it already? Did we not already see this? Why is it all of a sudden now it matters? And talking about the head to head ranking and stuff, Kirk Herbstreit made it was a good point. He made a bad point that I'll get to in a second as well. But he talked about it on College Game Day. He said, we need to stop these weekly selection, these like reveal shows, because none of it is officially set until that selection show at the end of the year. It doesn't make any sense. It just creates different narratives there. And the committee has to answer for things that they really don't have an answer for right now. And so I think the whole thing, they just need to do one selection show end of the year, which is where the final one is overall as a whole. That was my big complaint there. And as far as the conference champions, yeah, every team that lost the conference championship moved back a spot at least, except for Alabama. I mean, that's the thing about it. But talking about the college football playoff as a whole, it's a big fat joke. And where the sport is heading right now is a big fat joke where we're at right now. And I think of that this way with the news, obviously, and I mean no disrespect when I say this. I mean I'm thoroughly pissed off at Notre Dame. I'm thoroughly pissed at them for that bowl game scenario where they didn't get in and they decide they don't want to go to a bowl game, which sets up a future scenario where you have all these teams like we've seen already. That bowl game season just doesn't matter with the expanded playoff, and that was a fear whenever the expansion became a thing there. And so now my biggest issue here is with this expansion. I thought whenever this expansion happened, I still was in favor of whenever it happened was awesome. We get more teams involved, get more teams opportunities to play for a national championship. And instead, it has become the biggest wine fest I've ever seen. Like this makes wine festivals look like nothing with the amount of crying that all these teams are doing who lost football games, who sit there. Hey, Notre Dame, you want to get in? Get a freaking kicker that will make an extra point against Texas A&M. Talking about
Hey,
Miami with
hey,
that.
hey, 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 hey. Don't
Um,
go after the kicker. Tyler Buckner dropped that football. Tyler
that's fair.
Buckner
That's
should
very
have been
fair. It's very fair.
dismissed from the team.
That's
But
very
yes,
fair.
get Tyler Buckner off the team. You're right about
Very
that. You're right about it's somebody's fault, but it's not the kicker's fault.
fair.
It's Tyler Buckner's fault.
But back to my point, we have all these teams. It's them. We have Texas trying to make arguments when they've lost 3 games. All these teams are losing games, and yet they're still complaining that they're not in the playoffs still. And that's not what the idea was when the expansion was made. The expansion was made to give those teams that earn the right to get the opportunity to play because they had successful seasons. And now to see where it's become with all these teams whining and complaining, I'll be honest with you, I hate where it's at and I don't know where the future leads here because they're going to meet January 23rd and it's going to lead to them going up to 16 teams probably. Here's what the frick they need to do. Number one, they need to get rid of committee, the playoff committee thing. It doesn't need to be
Agreed.
there anymore because nobody in there knows what they're talking about and making their excuses. I want the BCS model back.
And look, let's be honest. It's bias.
Mm-hmm.
Miami, whether they're better than Notre Dame or not, is completely tabled. Because the ACC did not have a representative, Miami got in. That is the number one criteria for why Miami got in.
Right.
Look, the head-to-head is fine by me. I'm past that. But you're telling me with multiple ACC ADs and coaches on the College Football Playoff Committee that they were just like, "Oh, you can leave the ACC out if you want. We're not thinking about what happens to our conference at all." Again, it had Miami been left out and had Duke been left out, the repercussions that the ACC would have faced from their biggest programs would have been immense. Clemson and Florida State, I think, would be SEC teams by this time today. They
Yeah.
would like that would have just happened. And I get it. You want it's rigged for you to get in. I just think there's no way you can't tell me, no matter what Hunter Yurchek says, because we know he's a liar. He hasn't told the truth this entire process, pretty much. There's no way ACC guys weren't like, and there's no way Big Ten and Big 12 and SEC guys weren't like, we got to get an ACC team in here.
Yeah. And to go back to what I said, I think the BCS model work. Number one, here's the thing you do. You reset all those poll voters. You reset that and make them earn it back. Then you use that BCS system to get it to work. You want to know why? 1 through 8 in the simulated BCS standings are the exact same as the committee did. The only difference in any of the playoff fielding at all was Notre Dame got in over Miami. That was truly the only. Notre Dame was ranked ahead of Alabama and and Miami and BYU were out still. So I think you can still get the same answers from the committee pretty much, except for maybe that one last spot with the scenario from the BCS standings. So I think I don't want to see committees anymore. Let's get back these standings with the BCS standings and everything. It doesn't have to be the BCS standings. It doesn't have to be called that. It can be called the CFP standings for all I freaking care. Switch the title. But my other thing is Kirk Herbstreit sat there, Austin, during the selection show, and he goes, you know, maybe if we get 16 teams, maybe that'll be it. Maybe that'll be right. And that's the problem nowadays with it. Whenever these teams are losing, whenever these teams don't get their spots in, the response instead of saying, do better next year, try again next time, is, okay, we'll expand this thing even more. The people in charge of college football, whoever that is, they need a meeting with all these coaches and leaders and say, look, we are either going back to the old school model, which was 2 teams in the national championship or a college football playoff with 4 teams, or we go to that FCS playoff model where every conference champion gets in and we have 14 at large teams. So either we cut off restriction back to the top teams or we get everyone involved. Doing this middle of the pack bullcrap stuff just isn't going to work and make everyone happy. So I think there needs to be some change there. It won't happen. I know it won't happen, but there needs to be serious conversation about switching that thing. I really think so. And that includes them ultimately deciding, do we want to cut it off back to 2 or 4 teams and just make sure we get those top teams in there? Or if we want to get a lot more in there, FCS playoff format's golden where it's at. I've not heard a single person once complain about the FCS playoff format. And you want to talk about, oh, that would still be nothing would happen there. North Dakota State lost at home as a 25-point favorite in round 2 of their FCS playoffs. So don't tell me that. All I'm saying is where we're sitting in the sport right now with where it is with that and where it is for the future of bowl games, I am scared where we are going next if we don't make a full-blown decision on what the future is. Either we get everyone involved or we only taking those top teams for the playoff because it's ruining bowl games. It's causing college football to sound political, which is the thing that I hate. For those of you who don't know, I hate politics. I can't stand them. I don't ever want to talk about politics ever. And it feels like that's where we're going with college football. So make up your mind on whichever one you want to do. But this has got to be an ultimatum change. And when you make this change, when you hear teams complain and say we need to switch back, you look at them and say, try again next year. That's what it needs to be.
I agree with you on the committee. Committee's got to go. We can't look unless the committee's made up of people who have no affiliation with any programs, conferences, what have you. I don't know how you think it's fair and just. That's my number one criteria. Put it back to a computer. We can't argue with a computer. All you do is type in numbers into a computer and then it spits out results. I will say this. I do think that some of the arguing shows that the college football playoff is working. One of the biggest one of the biggest arguments for detesters was that nobody will care. Nobody will care about first round games. Nobody will care about on-campus. Nobody will care. They only care about the championship game. Clearly, somebody cares about getting in. Clearly, some of these teams care about getting in. I will say this. I get the right for people to be upset with Notre Dame for sitting out the bowl game. It does do the thing we feared. It doesn't legitimize bowl games. I'll be honest, though. Notre Dame sitting out of this bowl game, I must stand with. I'm a Notre Dame fan, though. This isn't about the conference. This isn't about bowl games don't matter. This is about we were led astray for 5 weeks about the criteria, ultimately to have the rug pulled on us at the very end for no reason. So, no, we're not going to play in a bowl game because we're getting flip-flopped at the last minute. This really isn't about bowl games don't matter. It's more about we're not going to play your stupid games. I get it. I get being upset. I think it's a really stupid way to do it. I think Kirk Herbstreit makes a great point. The whole time, you and I and everyone else that watched these other top 25s and the teams and the players and the coaches, they have had this mindset that between weeks, these polls mean something. That coming into next week, we will consider how and why we ranked teams last week and how their performances this week have changed our minds. And what we saw for the first time in the College Football Playoff Committee, whether this is a new mindset because there's a new person at the top or whether this has always been a thing, For the first time, we've seen on full display that we are not considering rankings and reasonings between weeks. Because again, how can you look at the last 4 weeks of the college football playoff rankings and say, we've ranked Notre Dame at least 2 spots ahead of Miami, at least 2 spots ahead of Miami every single week. We feel so confident from week to week that Notre Dame is at least 2 spots better than Miami. And then we come into the last ranking, and that didn't matter. It didn't matter that Notre Dame has been 2 spots ahead of Miami, and neither team played this Saturday. I honestly, you should be locked in to your spot if you do not play on Saturday, unless the team above you moves. I just again, it's the people at the top making their own decisions. But I just don't know how you move a team up 2 spots and you move a team down 1 spot and neither team plays on Saturday.
Yeah.
But that's what happens when last week's rankings don't matter. So you're right. If the rankings throughout the year don't matter, then stop doing them. I'm not watching. Why are we watching them if they don't mean anything? Why are we doing them if they? Why don't those guys sit around and actually watch college football for the entire college football season instead of getting together in a room and watching a week 1 game for the first time? Why don't we just sit down and watch college football for the whole season and we get together on December 6th and we decide then if it doesn't matter? Let's actually watch the football games. And look, I'm going to be honest. Saban had some good points talking about maybe we have to change some things. I am so sick and tired of the whining and complaining about group of 5 teams getting in. Your 3-loss Texas team should not get in. Your 3-loss Alabama team should not be seated higher than a 1-loss James Madison team and a 2-loss Tulane team. I'm tired of it.
Here's the thing here. Last year, whenever Boise State got in as the one group of 5, ain't nobody was complaining then. Not a single person was there complaining about it. But because the ACC crapped the bed this year when it comes to their teams and the rankings and the tiebreakers, 2 group of 5 teams get in and they say, oh, we got to change everything now because 2 group of 5 teams got in. That's not how it's supposed to be. You don't need to be saying we can't get rid of these group of 5 teams. We need to look at the ACC saying, are we sure we need to keep on getting them as a Power 4 team? That needs to be a conversation there.
2 group of 5 teams that look better than any ACC team has this season. Right? Who do I like more between Miami, Tulane, and James Madison? It's not Miami. It's just not. Miami had an easy conference schedule and they lost 2 games. James Madison had an easy conference schedule and they lost this many games in conference. I mean, what are we talking about? What are we actually talking about in today's college football? I'm tired of James Madison, Tulane, North Texas, Navy, all these other group of 5 teams having to wait until the last 2 weeks to get into the top 25. It is ridiculous. We have got to start ranking teams that have a chance at the college football playoff. Let's be honest. Let's look at the bottom of the last top 25. Iowa is not in contention for a college. They have not been in contention for a college football playoff spot since they lost to Oregon. They haven't been. Georgia Tech hasn't been in contention since they lost to Pitt. Houston has never been in contention for a college football playoff spot. Michigan, I'll give you this. They probably had a tiny shot coming into the big game, but after losing the big game, they didn't have a shot.
Yeah.
Arizona hasn't had a chance at a college football playoff spot. USC hasn't had a chance since they lost to Oregon 3 or 4 weeks ago. Utah, I don't know how Utah's number 15. They've been one team, I think we've said for every college football ranking, It's just like they're not going to get in. How can they? They're blocked by like three teams in the Big 12. Literally three teams would have to disappear off the face of the earth for Utah to go to the Big 12 championship.
Mhm. Yeah. So
Vandy, I
yeah.
think I think Vandy is the only team ranked between ranked above James Madison and ranked above Tulane that I think had a fair argument to say we're a team that did something in the last week of the season to give us a chance at the college football playoff. And Miami, BYU. But Texas and then everybody below that, what are we doing? We had Navy fighting for a spot at the college football playoff. I don't know. I'm so sick. Where is Duke? Where is Duke in the top 25? Not this week's top, even this week's top 25. They won the ACC. I thought the ACC was this all glorious conference. That's why we had to get Miami in. Where is the ACC champion in the top 25?
Right.
I
I
don't
think so.
understand.
Yeah. And to go add on my
It's,
point, number one, that is a really awesome shirt you are wearing, sir. If I do say so myself, really great looking shirt
yep.
there. But like I agree on that first part. But go back to my second point. I think we keep on just moving it more and more teams, and it's just because we hear people complaining non-stop, non-stop. And I'm not saying, look, I'm not gonna lie. In the 14 playoff, when Florida State got left out 13-0, even though it was clear they were the better team, let's be real, it kind of feels like it was done dirty to them. Let's just be frank here. We Even though we both agree they should have been left out, kind of done dirty there. So I had no issue with that there. But for these teams to sit here that are at 9-3 or at 10-2 that lost multiple games in the regular season to sit there and complain and say this isn't fair for us, it just really messed with my mind. So again, I think there needs to be discussions at the top and make an ultimatum, Austin. Either we go back down to that 14 playoff and we only take the best of the best, or we do that FCS model, which is a model where every conference champion gets in and 14 at large team gets in. Like, we need to make an ultimatum here because if we keep on going with the 12 one year, 16 another, maybe we go to 20. I don't freaking know. But if we keep on going with this, we're never going to be settled, and we're never, year in and year out, we're going to be making all these changes every single year. We need to make an ultimatum on what it is. And whenever it comes time for teams to say that's not fair, you look at them and say, well, try again next year, because we just keep on letting people complain and then they think they can dictate how it goes. We're never going to get said anything.
Yeah, I'm with you there. The last thing I'll point out as a Notre Dame fan, and I've already gone on a tangent I didn't expect to go on. When ESPN showed all these different rankings where people talk about, here's how Miami's better than Notre Dame. They've got a better strength of schedule. They've got a better this. They've got a better that. And they showed all these analytics. Notre Dame, better strength of schedule. And then all these other statistics. Notre Dame is way better than Miami at. I don't know. It's like arguing with a brick wall. And like you said, BCS had Notre Dame over Miami. It's actually crazy how that works. I'm just tired of being told to look at analytics and look at this and look at that, and then it doesn't matter because it didn't matter. And again, let's hear this out. If you want to say strength of schedule doesn't matter, which is fine. You want to say head to head, more important, whatever, that's fine. Why does Alabama's strength of schedule matter? I don't care if they played the sixth toughest schedule this season. They lost 3 games. I don't know. At that point, why don't we throw Arkansas into the contention? They probably played a pretty tough schedule this year. They played an SEC schedule. They played several teams while they were ranked, and they only won 2 games. But the 10 games they lost, they played teams better than them. So why don't we put them in the top 20? Why don't we put them in the 1 seed? They only lost games to teams that were better than them, right? Like that's the Alabama logic, right?
Right.
That's what we're
I
seeing.
mean, that's the whole discussion here. Because again, you think back to it, you never hear the committee, and I mean not a singular time once at all, even mention that they lost to a 5-7 Florida State team in week 1. I don't think I heard that brought up a single time when discussing Alabama on the resume. And then, like I said, every conference champion moved back at least a spot. Or not conference championship loser moved back a spot at least. and yet Alabama gets to stay right where they're at. So again, to me, there just needs to be so much change, and there needs to be ultimatums made and set. Because if we just keep on sitting here and just letting these people cry their complaints about not getting in as a 9-3 team or a 10-2 team or 10-3 and we lost the conference championship, we're going to be sitting in these same spots next year, Austin, talking about why the 17th and 18th teams in the country should be in over the 16th team. We're going to be doing these same arguments every single year unless we get an ultimatum in motion to set things up for good in college football. That we're going to be stuck doing that.
Yeah. Look, bring the computers back. Um, and you know what? Whatever. At the end of the day, there's nothing we can do about what's happened. And again, the problem is the result is not it's not necessarily wrong. What the committee came away with is not necessarily wrong. But the way we got there was facetious. A computer doesn't lie. A computer doesn't lie. A computer wouldn't rank Notre Dame ahead of Miami every single week and then flip it when neither team plays. It just wouldn't happen. So that's enough of that. Let's talk about some of these other coaching hires that have happened throughout the season that we're going to hit on now. And let's start with UCLA. Look, they bring in Bob Chesney from James Madison. And look, I like taking notes here. James Madison's still good after Curt Cignetti leaves. Indiana's really good since Curt Cignetti left and came on board. Let's go ahead and get his replacement, and surely that'll work out for us. You've got Nico. You've got a good head coach. Surely this gets UCLA back on track.
You would think so, and I mean the man was at Holy Cross and made Holy Cross a national name in the Patriot League for football. Then he comes to James Madison and picks up basically right where they left off when it comes to winning as a program there. I think he's a coach that's had a lot of success and winning in a lot of places. I think he gets the right staff in there. It could be good, but he faces an uphill climb no matter what because UCLA football compared to UCLA basketball, revenue share wise, and where fans feel about him, oh, it's not even close. So he's got an uphill climb, and if he can do it at UCLA, he has got my full respect. I wish him nothing but good luck, but he's got a tough challenge ahead.
Then Michigan State, they're bringing on Pat Fitzgerald coming over from
Ooh.
Northwestern. And the job he's done at Northwestern, pretty incredible. It's not anything to necessarily write home about, but he's gotten a pretty bad program to at least mediocre status. Now coming over to Michigan State, a program looking to get back on track. I mean, we're talking about a program I remember we used to talk about as one of the best teams in the Big Ten, a team that's been to a four-team college football playoff. So it's not that long ago that this program was good, and the history they've got is great. Now to get back on track and be a competitor in this Big Ten and be a national threat once again, I think this is a move that kind of shifts you that way. I don't know if he's going to be come in right away game changer, but we've seen the kind of teams this guy can build in an environment like Northwestern. So now a little bit more support, a little bit of a bigger program. I think he's got a chance to do a good job.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he hasn't coached as a head coach since he was at Northwestern in that 2022 season. So he's been out for a little bit, but he's been assistant. He's been keeping an eye on the sport. And again, they brought him in because you want to know why? He is a Big Ten football coach. This is a man that coached 17 years of Big Ten football, knows what Big Ten football is and meets there. Took a Northwestern team, Northwestern, to multiple conference championship games in the Big Ten with all these big names. And so I think it's a hire that will work. I really think this is a hire where Michigan State maybe doesn't right away get up to like 11-1, 12-0 competing with Michigan. But a team you see as a consistent 7-5, maybe 8-4, maybe you jump to the 9-3 and you build as the years go along. But I think this is a great hire. He embodies Big Ten football, and I think he's going to be successful there. I will tell you that a man that can coach at Northwestern for 17 years and have a 110 and 101 career win-loss record, man knows how to run in the Big Ten. I think he'll be successful there.
Then we've got Kentucky. Out is Mark Stoops, but coming in, Will Stein. And look, this is a big change. 13 years for Mark Stoops as the coach of Kentucky. So this is going to be a big change. But look, I like this move. Why more teams aren't doing stuff like this, I don't know. Hey, who's had one of the most exciting offenses of the last 3 or 4 years? Dan Lanning in Oregon. Well, you probably can't get Dan Lanning, but his offensive coordinator probably would take a job in the SEC. Will Stein coming over from Oregon. And look, if he can bring some of the success, we saw what Kenny Dillingham was able to do after leaving Oregon and going to Arizona State. And he's got Arizona State as one of the top teams in the Big 12 over the last couple of years. A team we're constantly throwing around into top 25s and talking about what they can maybe do in the college football playoff. So Will Stein, this is a hire for Kentucky that says we're serious about getting right on football, in my opinion.
I think about it with the Dan Lanning hire to Oregon. Was Dan Lanning truly ready to be a great head coach at the time? No. I mean, let's say it like it is. It was because that was his first head coaching job at a big level. But Oregon said, we're willing to deal with maybe his learning curves, but we're going to give him a big investment. And that's what it is here. And I think if Kentucky does that for Will Stein, is he truly ready to be a head coach in the SEC at the age of 36? We're going to find out. But I think this is a guy that if you give him the right investment, you give him the right resources, he can lead Kentucky back to what Mark Stoops had him at a prime spot, which was a team that was constantly competing at the top of the SEC East. But now it gets a lot tougher. And honestly, this is just fun for rivalry stakes, Austin. Former Louisville quarterback Will Stein. Let's keep
Yeah,
that in mind for rivalry stakes there. So I think it's a hire. It's a guy that they are investing in. This is a guy that they say, hey, 10 years from now, this guy's going to be our head coach still, and we're building this program around him. I think that's what this hire means for Kentucky.
I completely agree with you, and I think that's the right move. It's the same move that was made at Arizona State with Kenny Dillingham. I think for a lot of these teams, a lot of these, I know necessarily Oregon's not a small program, but for an Arizona State or a Kentucky, this is the kind of move you need to make. Get a
Mm-hmm.
guy who's going to be an investment, who's going to help develop this program. And if all goes well, in 10 years, you're maybe competing in the SEC. Maybe not for the championship, but you could be one of those top. I mean, look at how many teams in the SEC didn't play in the SEC championship or in the college football playoff. So that's the kind of success, especially in the SEC, you can try to build towards. At USF, they're bringing in Brian Hartline, offensive coordinator to Ohio State, been a position coach there for a while. I like this hire. The thing that I'm a little bit hesitant on, and it's no disrespect to Brian Hartline, well, let's look at what happened last year after coordinators left Ohio State after their national championship run, and they went out. Chip Kelly went back to the NFL, fired in his first season. Jim Knowles goes over to Penn State, and they have a pretty big dud of a season. Not that that's necessarily on Jim Knowles. So it's not so much that I think they made the wrong move, but it's going to be interesting to see. Brian Hartline had so much talent on that Ohio State offense. What's he going to be able to do at still kind of a hot spot in South Florida as one of these group of five schools? But it's definitely going to be a build and a grind, and you're not going to have necessarily the same talent that you had at Ohio State. So I'll be interested to see if he can kind of shake off that kind of, not necessarily a curse, but that bad juju coming from the coordinators of Ohio State last year, and maybe bring kind of a different environment and a different energy to USF where he's able to continue to be successful.
Yeah, my only worry here is again, this is a guy who's been in Ohio State's system since 2017. I mean, he's really not been anywhere outside of that. The one thing I give him tons of credit for, he has been in charge of wide receivers since he has gotten there. And last I checked, I think there's been a couple pretty good Ohio State wide receivers in the NFL. I could be wrong here, but I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure there's been a lot of good ones. So I think it's a hire that can work. He's clearly shown an eye for talent and developing it. I just don't know. It seems like such an outside hire for South Florida. I don't know if it'll work out right away. I think they need to give him some time with it, and they're making more investments at USF. They got to own their own stadium coming soon. They're adding more money to that football program, so we'll see where that leads with him. I I have my question marks though, so I want to see what kind of result he's going to bring there.
Yeah, I'm with you there. James Madison is bringing in Billy Napier, guy with
Woo!
SEC experience at Florida. He's going to replace Bob Chesney, who we just talked about a minute ago. And honestly, I personally I like this hire. Billy Napier wasn't great at Florida, but he also wasn't bad at Florida. Sure, they never really met expectations. They weren't really a contender in the SEC while he was there. But I still think he's a talented coach, and bringing in that kind of SEC experience to James Madison, really, that's what they need. If they can bring a coach with that kind of experience into the Sun Belt, they just want to continue the success they've had over the last couple of years. And I think this is kind of the right handoff for them to kind of stay successful. This is kind of a hire that's going to catch people's eyes and bring people in and say, I want to play for a guy who coached in the SEC. My advice to James Madison would from day one tell Billy Napier, your job's on the line. You don't win, your job's on the line. He's 1,000 times better coach when he thinks he's about to get fired.
Well, let me say this. Man with Sun Belt experience. Let's not forget he was at Louisiana before he went to Florida, made the conference championship game all 4 years he was there. So it's a guy who has experience in that conference. The thing that's going to hurt Billy is Billy, for the love of God, I love you, but hire someone else to call the offensive plays. You are
Yeah.
putting yourself all the pressure on you if you're calling the offense and the offense is failing. That puts all the onus and pressure on you. Hire somebody else, build that, and then I promise you, you will be successful there. James Madison is the program that's already set for success. So he's coming in with a lot of pressure, Austin, where if they're not immediately competing right away in the Sun Belt again at the top yet again, then it's going to feel like the Florida job all over again for him. So I'm rooting for him because I still think Florida did him dirty on the way out, and Florida fans especially. It's an intriguing hire. It's a guy with a lot of experience in the Sun Belt. We'll see if he can continue to have that success in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, and then here's the last hire we're going to talk about. Big hire for Penn State. They go out and they get Matt Campbell from Iowa State, and this is to replace James Franklin. And look, I think this is a good response for Penn State because James Franklin's gone. Players are talking about, how great of a coach he was, and already it seems like maybe they kind of messed up on this. Dude, I get it. Fans were kind of fed up with it, and now the university is kind of getting fed up with kind of stalling at, oh, darn, just those 9-win seasons. How dare we? I know this season wasn't going to be a 9-win season, but really that's what it was getting to. It was like, oh, we're just losing one or two games to, I don't know, top 10 Michigan or top 10 Ohio State. Oh, to be us and only win 9 games. What a terrible program we are. That's kind of where it was getting with at Penn State. And moving on from James Franklin, he completely eviscerates their recruiting board, flips almost all of their recruits to Penn State. They have nobody on their recruiting board right now. Going out and getting a guy like Matt Campbell, who has recruited so well at Iowa State, built teams really well that way. I'm excited to see what Matt Campbell could do, but he's got to get some support from this university. I've got to assume that maybe with some of the conversations with the university, they've promised him maybe a little bit more help on the NIL front. Because otherwise, I personally don't know. I know Penn State's a bigger job in the Big Ten, but being at Iowa State to me is like you're getting the same kind of like NIL support that Penn State was giving James Franklin. I know that's a bit of an exaggeration, but hopefully they promised him a little bit more for him to continue to build this team. Because I think right now, if I was a Penn State player who still had eligibility, I would be thinking about hitting the transfer portal and going to play for James Franklin down at Virginia Tech, especially after what just happened in the ACC and Duke just won the championship. I'd say, hey, we might be able to play for a college football playoff next year at Virginia Tech. But now, hearing Matt Campbell's name coming in, I might stop at the door and think before I hit that transfer portal. Maybe I might say and see I might at least hear Matt Campbell out and what he intends to bring to the program before I think about hitting the portal and heading off to James Franklin at Virginia Tech or somewhere else entirely.
Yeah, I just want to add a couple hire. Number one, who Iowa State got to replace Matt Campbell, Jimmy Rogers. That's a fun hire. We'll see how that goes for him. Tosh Lupo at California has already gotten their star quarterback, Jaron Sangapolatelli, to stick around. So that's a good sign for him early. And then Charles Huff to Memphis. Again, let's remember what this guy did at Marshall and all the players left with him to go to Southern Miss. Now he's at Memphis. I think that's good. But for Matt Campbell, I don't want to say I said this, that word for word, they should go after him the second James Franklin was fired. Oh, no, No, wait, that's exactly what I told you to say. And or not, well, not what you say, but that's what I told them to do is go out and get Matt Campbell. This is a guy that has done more with less than any coach in college football. This is a guy who took Iowa State its best years. All people are like, he only went 8-4, 9-3. He had one double-digit winning season. He's doing that consistently at Iowa State, a school that has never had success in football on a consistent basis. Since he has gotten there, it has been consistent success with far less resources than many teams he faced off against in the Big 12 all his years there. And, I saw an analogy, Austin, talking about for Penn State search. I thought this is perfect. Said, this is like striking out 15 times at the bar and you still somehow pull a 10 at 2:30 in the morning. This is literally what this is because Penn State search was a disaster. They were going after all the big names. Nobody was interested. And then they're like, well, crap, what can we do? And then there's just a perfect, amazing hire in Matt Campbell just sitting there waiting to get asked for it. And it's a great hire. I think it's going to work out for Penn State. He's going to have more resources there, which means there will be more success. Again, I think Penn State fans are a bunch of spoiled brats. So I hope this coaching search is a valuable lesson to say if you have a guy that's bringing you success and he has one off year, don't go and fire the man because you've already paid for that mistake with James Franklin there. I think Matt Campbell is going to work out, but you got to give him the chance to work out there. Which, speaking of James Franklin, did you see who he hired as his defensive coordinator at Virginia Tech?
I did not.
Um, the man that got fired as Virginia Tech's head coach a couple months ago, Brent Pry, is now the defensive coordinator for James Franklin at Virginia Tech.
That is awesome. That's actually awesome.
like I was like, I mean, getting paid millions and all you got to do is take a little downgrade and just coach the defense, and I don't got to pack up and move my house? Hell yeah. Where do I sign up for that? I mean, I'd take that easily.
I know he's good friends with Price, so I'm sure that's how he talked
Yeah.
him into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But how do you talk to universe? Hey, I know you just fired this guy, but trust me, I need him as my DC.
That
That's
tells
only
you how much that university is buying into James Franklin right there. That tells you a lot.
James Franklin's a good. James Franklin's a real friend. You know what? He's a real friend. To go out and be like, I know you just got fired by this college, but I need you.
Hey, we don't ride on the James Franklin
Hey,
bandwagon
you're
for
right.
no reason at all. We know what we're doing here riding on the James Franklin bandwagon, and we're going to ride it all the way to a Virginia Tech ACC championship next year. We can guarantee that.
Yeah, that's plain and simple. That's just going to happen. Um, but let's take a look at the couple games that are coming up this week. This weekend, I should say. First, let's start in the FCS. SC State, Prairie View, clashing for the Celebration Bowl. Who do you got in this game?
It's an interesting one. I didn't know exactly where to lean, but Prairie View A&M just had a fun surprise story, upsetting Jackson State to win the conference title. So because of that, I'm going to lean Prairie View A&M. I think they're a fun story to keep an eye on. South Carolina State is a team we've seen in this game the last couple of years. So let's go with the fun, kind of surprising story in this one, and that's Prairie View A&M.
I'm going to stick with South Carolina State. This is a team that I really like in the FCS. I love their logo and I love their mascot.
It is a good logo. I will agree with you there, sir. I will agree with you.
I'm gonna stick as a supporter of South Carolina State. But then we've got the only game that matters all year long: Army versus Navy. They clash in Baltimore. Who do you got?
I still wish one day, hopefully, we see a Notre Dame Navy game for a college football playoff berth. It's just something I hope to see one day. God bless America truly in that matchup. I mean, really. I will go ahead and say this. I don't know if we're doing bet of the week. My bet of the week is the over. I'm taking the over in Army Navy. We're doing that here, ladies and gentlemen. We're taking the over. And I want to root for Army, but Blake Horvath's still there for Navy. And it's hard to stop him in this Navy offense. I'm going to take the midshipmen to win this game and take home the trophy once again.
I'm with you. I've been a diehard for Blake Horvath all season. I'm going to continue that much. I'm riding with Horvath, riding with Navy. I'm gonna try my very best to get my hands on some Liberty Bowl tickets so I can see this triple option
Yes.
defense live and up front. But yeah, I'm gonna ride with Navy in this game.
I
And then
love it.
finally, we've got the LA Bowl, Boise State versus Washington. They're clashing at 7 o'clock on Saturday. Who do you got in this ball game?
So, fun fact, the full name for this, and you'll find this funny when I say it, is the Bucked Up LA Bowl hosted by Gronk. I mean, what a bowl game title right there, ladies and gentlemen. When you envision bowl season and the randomness of these names, that is the one you think of right there for it. Listen, Boise State's great. They just won the conference, but Washington was my surprise team in the preseason, and this is their chance to get to double digit win or get to 9 wins on the year. So give me the Huskies. Give me the Huskies to take down Boise State. And this is going to be a fun matchup on Saturday in the LA Bowl with Gronk. We'll hang out with Gronk and have a good time.
I like Washington. I like what they've done this season, but I think riding that momentum for Boise State, winning the conference championship, and I think really finding an identity in Maddox and Madsen in that conference championship game. I like what they're going to be able to do offensively in this game. So give me the Boise State Broncos for
Ooh.
this game. That's going to be all our game picks, but we've still got bet of the week. Your bet of the week, Army Navy over.
Yes, give me that over, baby. Let's go. I bet the under in the past. This year it's going to be different. Army Navy over 38 and a half. Take it and run with it.
I'm going to take Boise State plus 8.5. I do think they'll win outright, but I certainly think they're going to cover that 8.5 point spread and keep it close against Washington. I think they're kind of being downplayed by Vegas.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. It's bowl season, Austin. We're getting here for it.
We are getting so close. Our next episode will be a full-on dive into all the bowl games. You know how much we love to read off all of those names and pick all of the bowl games. So that's going to be a treat. And we've got, some new bowl games or a new bowl game that sprouted up this year because the Bahamas Bowl is on temporary leave of absence.
It's a
Uh,
piece. I mean, a legendary
gone, but
bowl
not
game. We hope it can return. We hope.
stadium renovations. They say it'll be back. Let's hope for the case. And we'll also talk about the college football playoff in the next episode. But with all that being said, that's Austin Wader. I'm Austin Hill. And we want to thank you for listening.